morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice for Radio. So today, I want to show you a new way to play Beheeyem that I am extremely excited about. Remember, Beheeyem had a really good showing in day one of the World Championships last year, and everyone, not least myself, got very excited, and then it basically went away, potentially never to come back. Well, it has come back at this giant 1,200-person Limitless tournament recently. Grant Manley went and got 96th place. He made day two in a 1,200-person tournament. That is nothing to be sniffed at. So we need to have a look at this new Beheeyem list, what it does, and how it plays. Now, obviously, it all revolves around, stop me if you've guessed this already, Beheeyem. This is the one that for free colourless energy, though you would play it with a triple acceleration energy, more on that in a moment, so essentially one energy attachment, you do 90 damage, you shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck, and your opponent is then item locked. They cannot play any item cards during their next turn. And without item cards, it's very difficult to get rolling. They can play them, but they can't search them out with Pokegear, and they can't reuse them with Palpad, and that's going to get a little bit difficult, a little bit quickly. It means they can't use stuff like Quick Ball to search their Pokemon. It gets kind of annoying kind of quickly. Now, you do have to shuffle it back into your deck, but part of the goal of this deck is to try and make sure that you are doing this every turn, so you try and empty out your deck as much as possible. Though a quick side note as we're starting here, if you get your deck just down to one Elgium, one Beheeyem, one triple acceleration energy, it will become fairly easy to draw into what you need every turn, but you also really leave yourself vulnerable to Belelba and Bryson Man. Discards the top 3 cards of either player's deck. If you've got one Beheeyem, one triple acceleration energy in your deck, even if there's like 10 cards left, if you've only got one of each in your deck and your opponent hits them with Belelba and Bryson Man, you will lose. You've been warned. So that's Beheeyem, but we've also got Coughing and Wheezing. And there's no point even talking about the attacks on Coughing and Wheezing, because we're not playing the requisite energy to actually pay them. We use this here for Roxy. Now, what Roxy does is it allows you to discard 2 Pokemon from your hand, non-EX, non-GX, and draw 3 cards for each one discarded. Cool. But if you discard either Coughing or Wheezing using this card, then you get to put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Beheeyem doesn't do a huge amount of damage. It's free hit KOing a lot of stuff. So spreading around a lot of damage here could work very, very nicely indeed. It also just works as a very nice draw engine. Oh yeah, and we've got Mimikyu. You see, Mimikyu works here absolutely beautifully. It also came out in Cosmic Eclipse with Coughing and Wheezing, and it's got the ability Shadow Box. Pokemon GX that have any damage counters on them have no abilities. So what you do here is you drop down your Mimikyu, and then when you use Roxy, if you discard 1 Coughing or Wheezing, then you're turning off all the abilities on all of your opponent's EX and GX Pokemon. It won't affect stuff like Dedenne, because Dedenne comes into play without any damage on, but any other EX or GX with abilities will be turned off immediately, and that's kinda wonderful. Now, elsewhere in the Pokemon line, we do see 1 copy of Mew to protect your bench. You're not playing the biggest, baddest Pokemon here. Mew becomes a pretty good option. We've got 1 copy of Oricorio GX, the lone multiple prize Pokemon in the deck. This lets you draw 3 cards if you had a Pokemon KO during the previous turn, and you're playing a lot of single prize Pokemon, so your opponent is going to have to take 6 prizes to win the game with 6 individual KOs, unless they take down Oricorio, and that means that you're going to be drawing 3 cards moderately often. And then we got 4 copies of Jirachi. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I know we talk about Jirachi a lot. It gets played a huge amount. When it's in the active, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a trainer card, put it in your hand, Jirachi goes to sleep, you free retreat with a skateboard. The thing is, even bearing in mind how great Jirachi is generally, it is particularly awesome in this deck, because remember, you're constantly putting Beheeyem into your deck. So you need something to put active, And you don't have much. Because coughing and wheezing, remember, you're not trying to play, you're trying to discard with Roxy. So you basically leave Mimikyu, but it's got a good ability, Mew, but it's got a good ability, or Ikorio, but it gives up 2 prizes, or Jirachi. So a lot of the time, Jirachi is going to be what you want to put active after a Beheeyem attack, partly because you then get to use the ability next turn if it's not KO'd, and with your opponent not having access to item cards, that's moderately likely. But partly because you just don't have any better options for putting something active. We're not playing any Pokemon here that you put active after a Beheeyem attack. We've only got useful Pokemon, but the Jirachi is the most expendable of them, shall we say. Now, in terms of energy, we're playing 4 Triple Acceleration energy. We're not playing anything else. The goal of this deck is to attack with Beheeyem. You only want to attack with Beheeyem. Triple Acceleration energy lets you attack with 1 attachment. That's all you ever want to do, so you play 4. Maybe if we could play more than 4, we would, but that's a moot point because we can't. Now, moving into trainer cards, obviously we're playing 4 Roxy. Roxy's pretty important. And then we're playing 3 copies of Cynthia. It's the best shuffle draw we've got. Shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 6 cards. It's a staple in most decks. We are playing a copy of Tate and Liza here, which is a weaker Cynthia. You get 5 cards rather than 6, but it also works as a switch, which you might need to do to get your Beheeyem into the active, so we're cool. We got 4 copies of Quick Ball and 4 copies of Mysterious Treasure, and this gives you really nice options for Pokemon search. Your deck here is almost entirely Psychic Pokemon. The only non-Psychic Pokemon we've got is Jirachi. So, Mysterious Treasure gets you everything but Jirachi, and Quick Ball gets you everything but Beheeyem, and playing 4 of each should get you a lot of good Pokemon search. Now, I did say we weren't playing any Pokemon to stick active after Beheeyem. Obviously, we're playing 4 copies of Lily's Pokédoll. So to go back to what I said about putting Jirachi active, you've got no better options. That was Pokemon options. Clearly, the first 4 options in your deck are Lily's Pokédoll. It's a 30 HP Pokemon that starts as an item card and doesn't give up a prize. And the awesome thing about it is that if your opponent chooses not to take a KO or is unable to, you put Lily's Pokédoll on the bottom of your deck. You don't have to discard it. What's even more awesome? It's not retreating. So what you can do is put Lily's Pokédoll on the bottom of your deck, put Jirachi active, use the ability, retreat with Jirachi, then attack with Beheeyem, and round we go. The ideal situation for this deck is that every time you attack with Beheeyem, you whack a Lily's Pokédoll up, and with your opponent being item locked, they never get to the point of KOing 4 Pokédoll, and you never give up a prize. But when you do, probably Jirachi. We see free Pokegear 3.0, this just helps you get your supporters, and this is a little bit of a theme with a deck like this. You need to get set up. Until you get the item lock on, this deck is nothing special. The only thing, and even the damage you do when you get going is not much. Not compared to a lot of decks. But what makes this deck good and special and awesome is the item lock. So you've got to get it rolling early, so cards like Pokegear are pretty big. 2 copies of Power Pad to reuse your supporters, especially Roxy, because remember, every time you play it, 1 damage on each of your opponent's Pokemon. That's kind of awesome. 2 copies of Ordinary Rod, they can't get back basic energy, you don't play any, so it's only recovering Pokemon. And you should have enough Jirachi, and you should have enough Beheeyem, because you're shuffling it into your deck, it shouldn't be being KO'd, though you can reuse them if you need to. But most of the time, this is going to be for coughing and wheezing, so that you can continue to use Roxy. 1 copy of Great Catcher to gust up EX and GX Pokemon. Try and stick them in the active with large retreat and no energy and no items and all of that. It's the only gusting you play, but this is a greedy deck. Playing Beheeyem with Roxy and the coughing and wheezing is kind of greedy. One of the things you have to lose under these circumstances is that you have to get rid of a lot of your gusting, and you're left with 1 Great Catcher. 1 copy of a Skateboard gives you free retreat with Jirachi, we've talked about that. And then we've got Shrine of Punishment as our stadium of choice. you're not going to take a huge amount of KOs with coughing and wheezing. What you're going to do is spread extra damage down. And you're not going to take a lot of KOs with Shrine of Punishment. What you're going to do is put extra damage down. But between the extra damage with coughing and wheezing and the extra damage from Shrine of Punishment, what you're aiming to do is try and turn a 3-hit KO into a 2-hit KO. And if you can do that twice, then all of a sudden you're winning 2 turns earlier. This is all about shortening the clock. The goal of the deck is to shut your opponent down, and then it's a race where you're trying to get enough prizes to win, and your opponent is trying to set up using Pokemon and energy and supporters, but not items. Every turn you can shave off that clock gives you a better chance of winning, and that's why we've got the spreading around here. Nice and simply. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Grant Manley for playing the deck and being a bit awesome with it. Shout out to the lovely folks over at Limitless TCG for publishing the deck list. It's on the screen right now. That's where that came from. And I suppose to you, lovely ladies and gentlemen, for watching. I love this deck. I've never gotten on with Beheeyem myself. I have tested it and tried it a lot. I don't think it's my kind of deck. I cannot win consistently with it. And this is a new build, so maybe I could with this build, but it's definitely one to try. And other than the 4 Jirachi and maybe the Shrine of Punishment, this is a proper job budget deck. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of good stuff. Lots of fun with Beheeyem. Is it around to stay? I couldn't tell you that, but I can tell you it's here for now. Also worth pointing out that all the main parts of this deck are going to survive the rotation. You'll lose basically Mew from your Pokemon line, and you'll lose a couple of trainer cards, but nothing that's going to break the deck. The biggest loss to rotation is going to be Shrine of Punishment and a skateboard. I'll let you figure that one out. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, me nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, or you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.